Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, my beloved. That's what you are. Welcome to Readings with Regina. And I just want to remind you all why I do this program because I want Black brains to really increase with intelligence and smartness. And I know that this country has dummied down pretty much all Americans while some soar in evil ways. Okay. Others just pretty much stay the same. Go to work, look at TV, and TV is not meant to help you intellectually. Not at all. So I really want to encourage my people in particular to read so that you could advance this planet while you're on it. All right, I'm going to get right to the books in a minute, but I do want to share this with you. You know, I am a Black nationalist, which means that I care about everything Black in America and around the diaspora. I want you to look into what's going on in Mali, what Assimi Goita. I want you to look into that. There's alternative news stations that will tell you more about it. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but I will say this. Can you dig it? United States, France, and Ukraine are sending soldiers over to Mali to disrupt, to kill, because Mali has claimed its independence from France. Know that, my people. All right, let me get to the books. Very important. Now, the first book that I'm going to start with is The Slave Ship by Marcus Rediker. And I'm so excited about this because he's going to be in Chicago tonight and I am going to see him. And if any of you have any questions that you would like to ask this man about the book, The Slave Ship, just get in touch with me. Go to my website, apanthersister.com. You can get in touch with me, give me your question, and I can submit it. All right, here we go. Once again, The Slave Ship. And some of you might be thinking, why the slave? Why you go? Because that's our history. If you are African American, once a Negro with a little N, this is how you got to America. Never forget that. Okay. Now, this section that I'm going to read, once again, it's telling you about the employees, if you will, or I should say the inmates that are aboard the slave ship or a slave ship. Marcus Rediker breaks it down. Here we go. The lesser officers and skilled workers included the boatswain. Now, boatswain is spelled Boatswain. I first thought it was boatswain, but it's boatswain. But you know, I'm gonna tell you, reading about 18th century literature, you could really see how English has changed. All right. Anyway, I won't go too much into that. But look up that word, the boatswain, gunner, cooper, and cook. The boatswain, like the mate, was something of a foreman. He was responsible for the rigging, kept up the cables and anchors, and on some vessels took charge of the female slaves. The gunner or armorer was responsible for the firearms, the ammunition, and the artillery, as well as the locks and chains. He was crucial to an era in which trade itself was regarded by many as a form of warfare. The slave trade, my people, this is me now, not the book, was indeed considered a form of warfare because it was. People were killed, people were kidnapped, people were chained. Okay. Okay. Where am I? I always get lost. He was crucial to an era in which trade itself was regarded by many as a form of warfare, and to a vessel that was in effect a floating prison. The slave ship was considered a floating prison. The cooper built and repaired the cask and hogsheads in which many commodities, especially sugar and tobacco, were shipped and preserved, as well as food and especially water. He might also perform other woodworking tasks. On the slave ship, as on other vessels, the cook was sometimes an older man who had seen better times and was now unable to go aloft or perform heavy physical labor. Or he might alternatively be an African American, with the black cook emerging in the 18th century as a familiar figure on ships of all kinds, including slavers. His job was an arduous one, for he had to feed up to 300 or 400 people twice a day, according to the crew and probably to the enslaved, if we had any evidence of their view. The cook would not have been considered a skilled worker. The common seaman was a person trained to sail a ship, to hand reef and steer, as the old phrase had it. He knew how to climb up and down the ratlines, how to set the sails, how to knot and splice the lines, and how to steer the ship. By 1700, seafaring labor was roughly the same everywhere. Sailors circulated from ship to ship and found the tasks performed and the skills required by each to be essentially the same. An able seaman knew how to do the work of the ship in all aspects. Slavers also had on board, at lower wages, ordinary seamen, usually younger and less experienced men who were still learning the mysteries of a dangerous occupation. The sailor on a slave ship was also a prison guard. He spent a lot of time supervising and guarding the enslaved as they washed, ate, danced. They had them dance for exercise night. They didn't shake it on down like at a club. They danced for exercise and sat on the main deck. This was the ship's reproductive or domestic labor. Most slave ships, especially after 1750, had a number of landsmen on board. These were young, unskilled workers, sometimes from the countryside, sometimes from the city, who signed on to Guineamen, and I told you about Guineamen, that name, Guinea, a big swath of land in Africa. But because they were capturing Africans, they started calling the slave ship the Guineaman, the Guinea ship. When laboring jobs along the waterfront were hard to find, as they often were in peacetime. See, fewer jobs in peacetime. In war, more jobs. Ain't that crazy? That's the system we live under. Their work consisted mainly of guarding the slaves, although they would also be deployed for any variety of unskilled manual labor aboard the ship or ashore. During the course of the voyage, they would learn the ship's work and after 2 or 3 voyages, qualify as ordinary seamen. Until then, they ranked only above the ship's boys in the working hierarchy. The boys, usually between the ages of 8 and 14, listen to this carefully, people. The boys, usually between the ages of 8 and 14, and 1, 2, or 3 in number, were being, quote, bred up to the sea, end of quote, by serving an apprenticeship, usually to the captain himself. Like Samuel Robinson, they performed odd jobs and were the object of no small amount of horseplay and even cruelty. Now, people, I just want you all to think about what in the world little children are doing aboard a slave ship, and understand the term cruelty, what that might mean. You see, more than likely, them children that were aboard a slave ship, Lord have mercy, they probably came from very poor families. The families might have been in debt. Okay, they lent out their children to be aboard a slave ship. 8, 10 years old. I'm not going to go any further. Think about that. And those of you who are, who are using, and I hope you are, these videos as teaching tools, have your children write about that. That is a very good subject for them to be enlightened on. Children aboard the slave ship. Now, of course, we're talking really mostly about white children. We ain't even talking about bloods. We're talking about white children. All right. Our next book is Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. And I love reading this book. You know that I do. Why? Because this is a true story. This is a true story of an enslaved slave girl. Boom. And how her life was turned upside down by a pedophile master who was old enough to be her grandfather. Okay, Linda Brent has run away and her children were put in jail. It's not funny, but I got to laugh to keep from crying. Her little kids were put in jail. All right, thinking that would bring her back. Okay. This chapter is called The Children's Soul. The doctor came back from New York, of course, without accomplishing his purpose. The doctor was Dr. Flint. He borrowed money to go to New York, all right, to find Linda. He assumed that she was in New York. She wasn't. He had expended considerable money and was rather disheartened. My brother and the children had now been in jail 2 months, and that also was some expense. My friends thought it was favorable time to work on his discouraged feelings. Mr. Sands, that's the father of her children, sent a speculator to offer him $900 for my brother William and $800 for the two children. These were high prices as slaves were then selling, but the offer was rejected. If it had been merely a question of money, the doctor would have sold any boy of Benny's age for $200, but he could not bear to give up the power of revenge. See, he's holding on to her children, okay? He's her owner, and he thinks keeping her children will bring her back to him so he could rape her. Okay. But he could not. But he was hard pressed for money, and he revolved the matter in his mind. He knew that if he could keep Ellen till she was 15, listen very carefully, he could sell her for a high price. See, girls could be sold for a high price, especially biracial girls. But I presume he reflected that she might die or might be stolen away. At all events, he came to the conclusion that he had better accept the slave trader's offer. Meeting him in the street, he inquired when he would leave town. Today at 10 o'clock, he replied. Ah, do you go so soon? Said the doctor. I have been reflecting upon your proposition, and I have concluded to let you have the three Negroes, small n, the three Negroes, if you will say $1,900. After some parley, the trader agreed to his terms. He wanted the bill of sale drawn up and signed immediately, as he had a great deal to attend to during the short time he remained in town. The doctor went to the jail and told William he would take him back into his service if he would promise to behave himself. But he replied that he would rather be sold. Now, listen, this brother's like, nah, I ain't dealing with you, Jack. Sell me. And the doctor says, you shall be sold. All right. You ungrateful rascal. And let me tell you, it's not in this book, it's in other books that I read. You know what black people used to say when they were going to be sold? They would say, Master gonna put me in his pocket. Master gonna put me in his pocket. And I want to be put in his pocket. Can you dig that? That's how rich slavery was. That idioms were made up about it. The enslaved person said, I'm going to be put in Master's pocket. Can you imagine that? Yo, here we go. In less than an hour, the money was paid, the papers were signed, sealed, and delivered, and my brother and children were in the hands of the slave trader. That was a business. Slave trading was a business. The slave trader was a businessman. I've talked about that in earlier episodes. It was a hurry transaction, and after it was over, the doctor's characteristic caution returned. He went back to the speculator and said, "Sir, I have come to lay you under obligation of $1,000 not to sell any of those Negroes, small n, in this state." "You come too late," replied the trader. "Our bargain is closed." He had, in fact, already sold them to Mr. Sands, but he did not mention it. The doctor required him to put irons on that rascal Bill and to pass through the back streets when he took his gang out of town. The trader was privately instructed to concede to his wishes. My good old aunt went to the jail to bid the children goodbye, supposing them to be in the speculator's property and that she should never see them again. As she held Benny in her lap, he said, quote, "Aunt Nancy, I want to show you something." He led her to the door and showed her a long row of marks, saying, "Uncle Will taught me to count. I have made a mark for every day I have been here, and it is 60 days. It is a long time, and the speculator is going to take me and Ellen away. He's a bad man. It's wrong for him to take grandmother's children. I want to go to my mother." Oh, my goodness. Well, we will find out what happened to little Ben and Ellen on Thursday. But keep in mind, they were in jail for 2 months with the doctor trying to get their mother back. That's how bad, how dogged he was about. He was going, "Hey, that black woman." Can you dig that? And I also want to point out to you again, George Washington, the first president of the United States, hunted down a young girl just like Dr. Flint is hunting down Linda Brent. Yo, don't know the backstory, but it's in the historical record that he hunted down on the judge and he did not understand why she left him. You believe this? They actually acted like we should have loved being enslaved by them. That's incredible. All right, next book, Ida B. Wells. Now, Ida B. Wells is the first, and yeah, she's the first investigative reporter, not the first black, but the first investigative reporter. And what did she investigate? She investigated lynchings. All right. And we know, let me just say this, Ida was run out of her town. She was a newspaper woman. She was run out of Memphis. They burnt down her office of the free speech where other reporters were black, of course. And we talking, what are we talking? We talking the 19th century. We talking around 1890 or so, or 1888. All this girl did was to write about the truth of lynchings. But this is very important, what I'm about to say. Ida B. Wells, like most blacks, listened to the media of that time, which were newspapers. And in the newspapers, them white folks wrote that the reason we hanging Mr. So-and-so or so-and-so is because he raped some white woman. Well, hey, Ida went investigated and found out that was not true. And she wrote about that. And because she wrote about that the white women were going after black men, boom, boom, yo, they burnt down her newspaper office. And the blacks in Memphis told her, because she was away at the time, they got in touch with her and said, "Look, don't come back, they're gonna kill you." All right. So she didn't go back to her home, leaving her friends and everything. And she's now in New York and she's working for Tea Time and Fortune's newspaper, the New York Age. But Ida is lonesome. And that's where I'm going to pick up now. All right. This is called The Homesick Exile. Every week from that first remarkable issue, I had my regular 2 columns in the New York Age. Before leaving the South, I had often wondered at the silence of the North. I had concluded it was because they did not know the facts. and had accepted the Southern white man's reason for lynching and burning human beings in this 19th century of civilization. Burning human beings in this 19th century of civilization. Although the age was on the exchange list of many of the white periodicals of the North, none, so far as I remember, commented on the revelations I had made through its columns. Eventually, these facts did get into the white press of the country, but through an agency that was little expected. About 2 months after my appearance in the columns in the New York Age, two colored women remarked on my revelations during a visit with each other and said they thought that the women of New York and Brooklyn should do something to show appreciation of my work and to protest the treatment which I had received. They thought they could get other friends together to talk over the idea. These two women were Mrs. Victoria Earl Matthews of New York and Miss Maricha Lyons of Brooklyn, a school teacher. The meetings were held and the idea adopted with enthusiasm. This led to further meetings, which grew in interest and number until no house was large enough to hold those who came. They met in the lecture rooms of the churches, and the slogan adopted was to raise enough to enable Miss Wells to publish her own newspaper again. A committee of 250 women was appointed, and they stirred up sentiment throughout the two cities, which culminated in a testimonial at Lyric Hall on October 5th, 1892. This testimonial was conceded by the oldest inhabitants to be the greatest demonstration ever attempted by race women for one of their number. New York, then as now, had the name of being cold-blooded and selfish in its refusal to be interested in anybody or anything who was not to the manner born, whose parents were not known, or who did not belong to their circle, bourgeoisie. New York looked down on Brooklyn, her sister city, across the bridge, yet the best womanhood of those two cities, led by the two women named above, responded wonderfully to their appeal. It resulted in the most brilliantly interesting affair of its kind ever attempted in the United States. Now I got to say this to you again about lynching. Ida B. Wells believed that black men were raping white women. Yes, she once did. Until her three industrious friends, three black men, Thomas Moss, Calvin McDonald, and Henry Stewart, were lynched. They were businessmen. These three brothers in the 1890s put their little meager earnings together, opened up a grocery store. White men got jealous and killed them. Yes. So this is when Ida realized, no, these men ain't raping white women. These men that are being lynched are often industrious black brothers. Okay. And so she wrote about that. That's why they ran her out of town. You see this? That's a lynching. Do you see that? I want you to see that. I know it's painful, but not only did they lynch people, let me show you this page too. I want you to notice that his pants are pulled down because they would rape black men very often before they lynched them. I know it hurts people. I know, but I'm going to give you even some more hurt. Now, in this, you can't even see the brother, but do you see all that black smoke? You see that black smoke? That brother was burnt alive. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what they did. Here's another picture. Last one. I won't keep you with this. See that brother? They burnt him alive. This is our history, people. This is our history in America, people. They burnt that brother alive. Can you dig it? Ida B. Wells wrote about these truisms, ran her out of town. She's in New York. And black women, thank goodness, well off black women have come together to celebrate her. That's what I just read. All right. Let me look at time. Yeah. Okay, good. Great. Now, my final book, Assata. 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 Now, dig that, people. This is the modern age. Assata's in prison. I want you all to think about, where am I? Here I am. Marcus Rediker. I just read that. He called the slave ship a kind of prison. Can you dig it? So I want you all, this will be a great assignment for those of you all who are using these videos to teach your children or grandchildren or both. Boom! Compare the slave ship to prison. Here we go. Assata Shakur. The next day, the same guard managed to tick me off again. I don't want any more trouble out of you, she said. I don't want to have to call the men again. They call male guards on Assata. This is Assata now. Listen to this. You can call the National Guard, the militia, the FBI, and anybody else for all I care. You can call your mother if you want to, I told her. As soon as she opened the door for lunch, I pushed right past her. I took my tray, sat down with the other women, and started eating my lunch. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I wanted to see what they were going to do. I had about 3 mouthfuls of food left on my plate when the goon squad came in. All right, get up and get in your cell. As soon as I finish what I have on my plate, now, they ordered. I only have 2 spoonfuls left. Now, they beckoned to the female guard. Remove the prisoner to her cell. She came near me with her hand stretched out. Don't you put your hands on me, I told her. I'll walk to my cell. Remove the prisoner to her cell, they ordered. She went to grab my arm, and all at once the room was in motion. Chairs, tables, cups, trays were flying in the air. Everybody was either running to get out of the way or fighting. The female guard made a wild dash for the door. The male guards jumped on me. I was hitting, kicking, scratching, punching, biting, and I don't know what all else. They finally managed to get me in my cell and the other women locked in their dormitories. None of the women was seriously injured. I had a few nicks and scratches, but otherwise I was fine and I felt fine. Some of that anger pent up inside me had been released. One of the guards was wounded. Somehow his face had got cut. He was the same little runt who had sat across from me in the hospital, pointing a shotgun at me and switching the safety on and off, talking about how he liked to kill animals. Nobody knows how he was cut or who cut him, but everybody knows that the hunter got hunted. Later that day, they brought a photographer to photograph the evidence. The local newspaper later reported a riot at the workhouse. Some police and the sheriff came round and searched the jail. They said they were looking for the weapon that had cut the guard. They didn't find anything. That night, they came and got Eva. Eva is her friend. They took her to the V room building, the New Jersey hospital for the criminally insane. She spent about 3 weeks there before she came back. The night she left, I felt so sad and guilty. Here I had got her caught up in my madness. I was sitting and thinking about her. So I sat down and wrote this poem. I'm not going to rush through that poem. I want to take my time. Oh, I got some comments. Let me bring them up. Right on. Yes. All right. Let me see if I can. I don't know this person. Bibi Fiore, Mama. Yes, yes, yes. Power. All right. It's my girl. That's why they love yo. See, y'all be teaching me stuff. I didn't never even thought of that. That is quite a connection. Thank you. Woo! That's heavy. Here we go. Fire. Yes. Look at that. Hey, love you all dearly. And again, I started to go ahead and read the poem, but I want to take my time. This is a bad poem. And this is also what I know. I know some of you who listen to me are poets, okay? Or would be poets, or you want to be a poet. When I read to you this coming Thursday, what Assata wrote about Eva, how she used images to describe this girl. I want my creative writers who listen to me to really tune into that. It is very important how you use language. And let me just tell you this too, Jack. In the 1960s, when I was a young woman, boom, brothers and sisters were spitting poetry on corners. Poetry was everywhere. Huey and Bobby loved Black poetry. Can you dig it? I mean, there's even a book, it might be out of print now, but look for it. It's called Black Fire by Larry Neal and Amiri Baraka. He was Leroy Jones then. We were doing poetry. And let me tell you, listen, when I was a young woman on the streets, I didn't know Blackness. I really did not. But listening to some of the lyrics that were just readily available, not on TV, out in the street, I was like, wow, this is, ooh, dang, hey. Brothers would be in the street, mostly brothers, and they'd be blowing poetry, Jack. That was the 1960s. That helped the 1960s become the 1960s. Do you understand that? Because Black people were standing up in a way that it influenced young people to take the power back, to not imitate white folks. So, in closing for today, I want you all to think about the slave ship and think about the prison that Assata Shakur is in. All right. Know that I think you are wonderful because I think you are a gift from the universe. I really believe that. This ain't no joke. You're a gift from the universe. Why do you think you're here? Boom. Love you dearly. I pray for you every night and every morning. And I really do look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Bye now. Same time, same place.